Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 113. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and also in Philadelphia, we have a very, very special guest, Gagz. Gagz, what's going on?
How are you, man? Thank you so much for having me. Big fan.
I appreciate that. I am very, very much looking forward to this conversation. And I have to say, I am jealous of your beard because that is amazing.
Thanks, man. I get that sometimes. I appreciate that.
How long have you been growing that out for?
I've been growing this beard out since June 29th, 2014. I had just finished my one and only Ironman distance triathlon. When I started the training for that about 7 months prior, I couldn't swim. I had to borrow a bike to get it done. I was riding the trainer on Friday nights in my basement for like anywhere from 3 to 7 hours, and I'm running my ass off. And I said to myself, man, like if I can do this, no one's ever going to tell me what I can and can't do with my body ever again. And I got done, and I had like what my brother called a safety beard. It was a very close cut, safe beard. You know what I mean? But that was it. And, with great beard comes great responsibility. So you do need to maintain it. I do get a seasonal trim, semi-annual.
Now, will this be, is this a lifelong beard kind of commitment here, or do you not know yet?
I mean, I don't necessarily identify, like if you ask me, Gagz, who are you? Like in the top 20 adjectives I'd say about myself, bearded isn't one of them. You know what I mean? So it is what it is, man.
Yeah. So with that being said, I'll have you introduce yourself. But first, I have to say that the way we got connected was through Mike Zacco, who's episode 67 of this podcast. And Mike's energy is out of this world. And I remember the conversation. He approached me and he's like, Joe, I got this guy. He's like, you have to talk to him. You have to talk to him on the podcast. And I am excited to find out more of why that's the case. And I trust Mike. And so I know this is going to be a good conversation. And if you could, Gagz, introduce yourself with those 20 adjectives or less to everybody listening.
My government name is Michael Gagliardi, 47 years old. Most folks call me Gagz. I'm an ultra runner. I'm born and raised in far northeast Philadelphia. I currently reside in Center City, Philadelphia, about a block and a half from City Hall. I'm a certified ultra running coach, as well as a podcaster, mentor to many. And and I should say thank you to Mike. When I met him at Philly Runner, and that's where I work, on that particular day, I was down in their Manayunk store, and Mike came in, and you're right, man. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, dude. He's got that great positive energy. And we started talking, over something as simple as, I think we're talking about gels and nutrition. And it turned into this conversation, and, very good dude. So thank you, Mike. Continued success also, brother.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And the best part about this podcast, about coaching, about trying to build community is that you find good people, and good people tend to also find good people. And I attribute a lot of what I've been able to do, and I'd be curious to hear if this is the same for you. Everything I've done in life has been because of the people around me in one way or another, supporting me, encouraging me, just being around me. And I feel like life is about just collecting good people and continuing to try to be the best version of you along the way.
Absolutely. There's this saying that I like to use a lot after a big race, and it's, no one gets where they're going alone. And that's kind of one of the tenets, in my in my everyday life, I'm very big on building community. You know what I mean? I'm very fortunate to have a partnership with Hoka as well as CLA Athletics. And those two brands have basically said to me, hey, man, just do your thing. It's not about performance, although I do care very much about that. I'm sure we'll get into that, but it's very much about creating community. It's easy for a dude like me who looks like me to occupy this space. You know what I mean? I feel like this space that I'm in, this ultra running community, there's lots of, I'll just be honest, man, like middle-aged white dudes, and I happen to have a certain look. So for me, this space is very accessible. But I've been fortunate enough to have a platform to like kind of cultivate a platform over the years. And it's not about promoting me anymore, man. Like I'm totally content with my space in the cosmos and what I'm doing. It's about bringing other people on board. When I started my podcast, Running Times with Gagz, the big mission of that is to open up this space for people who don't look like me. How can we grow the sport of ultra running? And it's a crazy kind of thing to kind of grow this community, man, because like no one wakes up in the morning and becomes an ultra runner the next day. All right. There's a process to this. And some people, they begin that process in high school. Others are collegiate runners who maybe turn into marathoners. Other are people who just, they decide to walk around the block and then good things happen from there, but and when you look at the percentages of people who are doing 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and it just goes down and you start walking into the ultra world, that space becomes smaller and smaller. So it's like, how can we get this community to be as vibrant as what I see in my everyday surroundings here in Center City, Philadelphia, man? There's people of all shapes and sizes, and this is not a magic trick, dude. So we can do this. Very big on fostering community because no one gets where they're going alone. Like you might meet somebody at one of the group runs that I'm hosting. And speaking of which, I'm just going to say it right now, man. August 15th, 10 p.m. I'm hosting a group run with Hoka. Check out my social, BDG123, to get more information. All right. And like, you're going to meet people there, and hopefully they're going to inspire you. And then you're in turn going to inspire others by your actions. That's how we do this.
I could
Man, I
not
just
agree more.
rambled. I just rambled a whole bunch, but you got me. No one gets where we're going alone, man.
Well, we struck a chord, and I would like to know, right, from where you sit right now, very immersed and enmeshed in the world of ultra running. When you look back, where did that start? Even if you didn't realize it at the time, where did that whole journey start?
Man, it came from my ability to drink vodka for, a day. Like I was that dude. I wouldn't go to sleep. I was always the last one at the party. I'm trying to get people to go to the after hours club, or the after hours bar. Um, I'm kind of making a joke, but I'm kind of wired a certain way, man. And I remember there was this time I was playing basketball. I was in sixth grade. It was a t-shirt league, and I forget what happened that during that practice, but the coach made me like run around the court like 5 times. And me being me, I was like, well, fuck him. And I just spent the whole practice running around the court. And I was dog tired, you know what I mean? But like I, I think I've always had something in me. I didn't know what it was, and for years I pissed away a lot of years, man.
Mm.
Not recognizing, not being willing to accept my talents. And I don't say that to be cocky, you know what I mean? But I think we all have innate gifts and traits and things that we can develop, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be running, it can be anything, man, you know what I mean? But for me, I learned later on in life that that's what it was for me. And once I was able to identify that, and give it a place, in my heart, in my everyday life, and that's when the real changes happen. When I gave in, when I cut out the bullshit, the people, the places, the things, and I just started focusing on being a better version of me.
Yeah,
That's it.
there's a lot there that we could unpack and will unpack. And I'll just lead with this first big question. We'll see where it takes us. But when you look
Okay.
back at all of the hardship, all of the challenge, all of the struggle, all of the experiences you've had in life so far, what is the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you didn't get to choose for yourself?
Being comfortable in my own skin, and yeah, on paper, that sounds so easy. Like you're born you, be you, do you, because no one else can do it for you and no one else is going to do it as fucking well as you can. But I'm 47 and a half. It took a long time for me to understand that. So being comfortable in my own skin, I'm wired a certain way. I have a tendency to go down rabbit holes. If I like something, I'm all in, dude. I push all in. And it's been that way pretty much all my life. It's just over the last probably, 8, 9 years where I've really learned to harness that energy and put all my anxieties and all my other crazy stuff of not being able to, be comfortable in my own skin, put it all in that running basket. You know what I mean? I pushed all in, man. And that was the hardest thing for me. That is when I look back at relationships in my life, when I look back at like, jobs, periods of time, things I was doing, activities, like the people I was trying to impress. Ugh, you know, like it, it it fuels me to this day, man, because I wasted time and we don't have a lot of time. We just don't, you know. I don't know how much longer I have left, but I don't think it's going to be another 40. I'm lucky if it's 30, it's over. And to keep doing what I'm doing at the level that I'm doing it, there's a window. It's not infinite, man. So I'm working real hard now that I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm working real hard to bring others with me.
Would you say that your wiring to go all in on things was one of the reasons why it sounds like alcohol was a big part of your life at one point?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. Yeah, I just like everybody else. I grew up in far northeast Philly. We used to have kegs down in the woods, like down by the creek, and like and then I went to college. I was 17. I joined a fraternity. Jesus, man, like it was kegs and eggs on a Monday morning, and it never stopped. I left Kutztown with a point 0.8 and 0.0. That was my GPA, and I'm happy to say that I eventually graduated from Temple with honors and with a degree in English literature, and that came later on. You know what I mean? But like, I lost my train of thought because I was thinking about my good old days back in Kutztown. Sorry.
It's all good. I mean, the question that comes to mind for me is you've come to this place in life where you're comfortable in your own skin. You've learned a
Yeah,
lot. It
yeah.
sounds like there's a lot of wisdom. Would you go back and change anything if you could? I can tell by the pause that this is a real tough one.
Eh. You know, I I wish I would have, maybe stood up for myself a little bit more back in the day. Um, I think we all, I grew up, had a lot of nervous ticks, a little stuttering, kind of anxious, a lot of energy. And I mean, wasn't quite the weird kid, nothing like that. I was always decent at sports, but like, I was probably on some spectrum nowadays, some whatever alphabet soup you want to call me. But like, I was probably on that a little bit. But at the same time, that's those little things that came because of that is what shapes me today. So I don't like, I'm really, like I said, I'm comfortable in my own skin now. You know what I mean? And so, no, I probably wouldn't change anything. There's maybe, people I would like to apologize to. There's probably decisions I would have made differently, but I think the outcome would have been the outcome, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a slippery slope because I don't want to go forward with regret. I want to go forward with positivity.
I've got a quote from Lucy Larcom who said, like a plant that starts up in showers and sunshine does not know which has best helped it to grow. It is difficult to say whether the hard things or the pleasant things did me the most good. And right, it sounds like the rain and the sun contributed.
Listen, I'll break it down in even simpler terms. I know what good pizza is because I've had bad pizza.
So good, man.
That's it.
So good. Okay. So with that being said, where you stand right now, you are in the world of ultra running. And, I always ask people, what is the hardest thing that you've ever chosen to do on purpose and why? And from our conversation before we hit record, I have a feeling that maybe you have multiple answers to this question, but I'd love to hear what comes to mind for you when the hardest thing you've ever done is put on the plate.
You know, on paper, you can look at it and say some of the races that I've done. In particular, the Tahoe 200 comes to mind. I completed that race in 2019. And, like 13 months prior, I completed Leadville 2018. I'm from Philadelphia. We don't have mountains here. That was tough. That was tough on paper. But at the same time, I chose to do that. It's like I paid for the experience. I can tap out whenever I want. I pause before I use the word suffering because that's not really what it is. There's real people there's people who suffer for real out there. So I think that one of the toughest decisions that I've had to come through, and I'm happy to say I'm now on the other side of it, was leaving my job with the city of Philadelphia. I worked for the city for almost 19 years, retired as a supervisor from the probation and parole department. I left that career path at age 46, almost 47, and to take a job working at Philly Runner. And that was tough, man. That was tough. That was a tough decision because I have a family, I have children I need to provide for. I'm fortunate that I have good people in my corner that helped me make that decision, that supported me along the way. They know who they are. Thank you very much. I love you very much. But that was very, very tough. That meant putting the ego aside, you know.
When it came to leaving that job, what was the driving force that led you to Philly Runner and everything else that you've done since?
Time is infinite. I am not. I do not have, I had lost 19 years of my life, working with people. There were some good people there, you know what I mean? But it was not the environment that I wanted to, that I chose to, that I wanted to be in any longer. It was slowly killing me because there was other parts of my life that were firing on all cylinders, man, all cylinders, full steam ahead. And I've got this job that I no longer like. I never believed in it in the first place, but it was a means to an end. You know what I mean? And I took the easy way out. And if I had to do it again, I think that would have been a different career path. I would have maybe stuck it out a little bit, maybe pursued something with my English literature degree, perhaps something in the creative field. I very much an artsy kind of person. I've got that side to me that's overpowering at times. That's one of the things I like where I'm at right now. I'm able to use some of my creativity, to connect people through my podcast in real life, through sometimes, just like storytelling, man. Um, yeah, I, uh,
There's a Brene Brown quote that you made me think of, and she says, when we spend our lives waiting until we're perfect or bulletproof before we walk into the arena, we ultimately sacrifice relationships and opportunities that may not be recoverable. We squander our precious time and we turn our back on our gifts, those unique contributions that only we can make. And when you look back at those 19 years, if you could go back and if that was a different path, and maybe it was running from the start, maybe it was the creative space from the start. I mean, what do you think you would be doing today if you had a 19-year jump on that?
I like to think I would have written the great American novel by now. um, my life would be totally different. I had taken that job with the intention of starting a family. When you have a family, that's it. If you're doing it right, you're locked in, you know. And that was a big part about, leaving that job. It's out there. It's public record. I walked away from $91,000, 5 weeks paid vacation, sick time out the ass, and zero accountability. And it's not about the money for me. It's about being happy. Again, being comfortable in my own skin. When I made that decision, there's a journalist, Jared Beasley. Shout out Jared Beasley. We were working on a story. He was writing a big feature about me that was just published in Ultra Running Magazine back in the May issue, 2023. And it was like, it was either going to go there or it was going to go in the New York Times. And we're having these conversations about, and we would talk about a dozen times, like 2-3 hours at a pop every couple of weeks. And it's like I was embarrassed to talk about my job. And it's like, how can I be real? How can I keep it real with myself, with my kids, with the world, if I can't even talk about what I do and have even the smallest sense of pride, in what I do? And I couldn't. And that was kind of like that was the kicker for me, when I'm having these conversations with the journalist, the real conversations, and I'm just, and meanwhile, I'm doing things with Hoka, with CLA, with things for the community. I'm involved in races and running and, all kinds of stuff. And that's the things that makes me happy. Those are the things that make me happy. So what the fuck am I doing wasting my time here? That's when I huddled up my troops. I keep a very, very, very small circle, and, shout out to my children's mother. She's like, man, I've been telling you for 10 years to leave that place. She's like, you need to do you to be a good father. You do that, we'll figure everything else out. And I'm very thankful for that, and that's that.
So I've got two questions. The first is going back to that phrase you shared, time is infinite, but I am not. When you said that a few minutes back, I got the chills. You say that with such conviction because it's so clear that you not only understand from a cerebral standpoint what that means, but you feel it in your heart because you've lived it. Do you think that you would be able to say those same words with that same conviction if you hadn't spent 19 years at that job?
No. And I'll tell you why, because a big part of my job, and it's unfortunate, it's just the way the system is, man, but a part of my job is putting people in cages, real shit. And when you're in a cage, you think about that. When you're not touching a doorknob, you think about that. And we're not talking about months. Sometimes we're talking about years. We're talking about decades. So I'd have these conversations with men every day, some women, but mostly men, and when you hear their stories, and that's one of the things that was so appealing about that job, was I love talking to people. I love getting their stories, man. So I can sit here and tell you shit just from a secondhand, from all day long. But like, those guys would talk about time. It makes you think about time. If you're doing that job correctly, and I'm not heartless, man. I was very much on the social worker side of that job. I liked to counsel dudes, work with them, try to keep them from the inevitable if they chose to continue down certain paths. But like, they talk to you about their time, and it's a different experience. And now that I'm doing these timed events, these timed races, I think about time in a whole new sense. So that's stemming from what I did for all those years. So no, I couldn't sit here and say a statement like that with conviction. No.
So the second part to the question, which is selfish on my end as someone who hopes to be a parent someday, what's the hardest part about being a parent? When you consider everything all together, what's the hardest part of that?
I think the hardest part is like knowing that your job is going to be over. And again, you don't have a lot of time to mold that little human that you hopefully chose to create. Um, yeah, I have two beautiful sons, Leonardo and Dante, age 16 and 14. They're probably the two best things I ever did or I helped do. And I just, that's the hardest part about being a parent, is knowing that they're developing into little humans. They're making friends, they're making connections. I hope they're good friends, like they're good people. Like you just worry about the future. I worry about the future for them, and I shouldn't, because on paper they're gifted, they're smart, they're handsome, they're healthy, knock on wood, all the good things, and they have a good home, and they know that they're loved. But that's not always enough.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's,
Letting go of
and
that control
and
must be hard.
not for nothing, all those years, I've seen a lot of good people make a bad decision, and it impacts the rest of their life in ways that they couldn't foresee possible, that were unfathomable to them at that time. That's scary as a parent, to know that they're going to, it's possible, it's scary. That's the hardest part. The other stuff, for me, I think it comes kind of natural, just be a good example, tell them that they're loved, be there for them. Like, I don't see my kids every day, but I see them frequently, but we're always texting back and forth, stupid little memes, stuff like that, like that's the easy thing. That's the easy part. And, if you love your kids, and even if you're destitute, if you love your kids, you're going to find a way to get them a pair of shoes, an outfit, and at least one meal a day. So the basics are always going to be provided for within reason. I don't mean to stand from a cliff of privilege here, but like, the basics are probably going to be met. It's the hard part is letting go, you know, and just hoping I did the right thing.
Yeah. Well, it's clear from our conversation so far that you are on a path, setting an amazing example, speaking and living a lot of really great ideas into this world, great concepts, loving and caring about other people, so on and so forth. And I would imagine that the giving up of control and knowing that, in a sense, you don't own your children, you're leasing them for a certain period of
Yeah.
time before they go out on their own, right? That's got to be so hard. I can't even imagine. Um,
Yeah, it is. It is. But at the same time, it's like, you referenced that quote, and I said pizza and pizza. I talk about good pizza and bad pizza. It's like, if you're doing your job as a parent, if you're doing your job as a leader, if you're doing your job as a coach, if you're doing your job as a community organizer, if you're doing your job as a good human being, you're teaching others and you're letting them grow. You're letting them move on, and that's the other half of this. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, my boys are going to be men or whatever we can cut that out or whatever. But like, my boys are going to be hopefully good human beings, comfortable in their own skin, and they're going to get there on their own path. And I hope and they're going to get there without me one day, and I'm not going to be here, and they're going to be there.
mm,
You know, that's the other half of that. So, there's a beauty to that. It's just the irony of life is that I won't be there to see it, to witness it.
that is ironic. And also, we don't have to cut anything out. I think the nature of the rawness of this conversation just goes to show how complex and at times confusing this world can be, that we all have to navigate. It's ever changing, and we're all doing our best to navigate it. And on that note, one of the ways you're setting an example is through how you use your body, how you pursue ultra running. And I would love to hear about the Tahoe 200, about any other races, about just overall thoughts about ultra running, because that is a space, like you said earlier, that is very small within the larger context of running as a whole.
Right on, man. Yeah, strap in because I can talk your ear off about this.
Let's do it.
uh, I referenced Tahoe. I've referenced Leadville. The thing I've been pursuing these last couple years, Joe, is I've been really into these timed events, 12-hour races, 24-hour races. I've got my eyes on some 48-hour races next year, as well as some 6-day races. And these races are done primarily on a loop. You know what I mean? And the loop could be anywhere from a quarter-mile track to a couple miles long, and it's the same repetitive thing. For example, I just did a race on Mother's Day weekend. I took second overall at the Dawn the Dust to Dawn Track Ultra here in just outside of Philadelphia. I did just under 117 miles over 24 hours. And that's fun to me. I never got bored. You know what I mean? I absolutely love that. And on August 5th, I think this conversation will probably not be out yet. Hopefully, I'll be defending my title for the 5th year in a row at the Loopy Looper 12-hour race over in New Jersey. And then I have another 24-hour race, the Hainsport 24-hour. I'll be defending my title for the 3rd year in a row there. Like those are the types of races that I've been passionate about these days. And it's like when I look at those types of races, it's like, you know, we talked briefly, I mentioned about the jumps from different distances and races. And it's like, for a lot of runners, ultra running is on the fringe. And then you get into ultra running and some of the stuff becomes fringe. And we start looking at like races like Cocodona 250, this Moab 240, some of these 200-mile races. That's on the fringe of what ultra runners consider possible. Then you look at some of the shit that I'm doing that like I'm into, and it's like kind of like the last bastion of fringe and an already fringe sport. And it's like it's exactly how I look at myself. I feel like I've always been on the fringe of things. Like I said, I'm not comfortable in my own skin. Like I've always felt on the fringe. And so this speaks to me. These types of races, and it's been my bread and butter the last couple of years. I love it. I love it.
So let's go to the race you just referenced over Mother's Day weekend, where you ran, I think, 117 miles, and you said you didn't get
Sure.
bored. You didn't get bored. I
Nah.
think more than anything else you've said on this podcast, that's really hard to fathom. What are you thinking about over 117 miles on a loop?
Let me say this too. I don't listen to music when I run either. So I'm just in my own head. Man, what am I thinking about? Hopefully, if I'm doing it right, nothing. But those moments are fleeting. Yeah, it's like you don't have many of those moments. That's like having the best slice of pizza in your entire life. You don't have many of those moments, man. But when you have them, they're special. And I didn't really have many of those moments. So a lot of that race was just trying to, you know, hold my own. Do what I know that I'm capable of doing. I have a voice. We all have an inner voice. You know what I mean? A voice that talks to us. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little schizophrenic when I run these races, but I have many voices that talk to me. And one of the big voices, frankly, I know this is going to sound weird, but like I got an inner Ric Flair, and he wants to get shit done. I have an inner David Goggins for that matter. For that matter, I also have an inner capybara, like those little friendly animals that all the animals love. Like we've all got these voices inside of us that. So a lot of times it's just giving in to like the message, giving in like well, not giving up, but like just keep moving forward. Like yeah. I mean, it's not just Ric Flair in my head. A lot of times I'm doing math, I'm calculating time, splits. Like if I keep this pace up for the next 13 hours, I'll be able to hit this distance, things like that. Sometimes, I have conversations with potential guests in my head. I like to, even just on an everyday basis, like I've been running the Ben Franklin Bridge. I'm doing it 500 times this year. I'm at 302 as of this recording. You know what I mean? And that's Philly to Camden and back. And, a lot of the time when I run, it's not Ric Flair on the bridge. God, no, man. It's like me thinking about my place in the universe, thinking about my interactions with people, thinking about, just reflecting. It's very meditative. That's the thing. Like, it's not always those weird voices in my head. It's very meditative, even if it's not comfortable, you're just focused on the task at hand. Like, you don't have many opportunities where you can just give into something, and just do it all day long for 24 hours. Come on, man. Like, what can you do for 24 hours, Joe?
Not
Real
much.
talk. Yeah. You know
Not
what I mean?
much.
So it's like there's a beauty in that movement, there's a meditative quality in that. And go ahead, man.
Well, you've got all those voices. Is there a voice that tells you to stop? Is there a voice that tells you this is too hard? Is there a voice that tells you you can't go further?
It's not even a voice, it's like a whisper. I suppress that shit. No. No. I don't give that voice a home. I don't give that place. I just don't give it a place, especially in a competition, because what's nice about these timed events, man. It's like I can go out west. I can hold my own. I'm not going to hit the podium. You know what I mean? But at a timed event, everyone's running the same thing, and it's just about moving forward. So when I go to a timed event like this one at Mother's Day weekend, this is historically one of the country's oldest timed events. I mean, it's an International Association of Ultra Runners silver label race. Shout out Bill Schultz, race director. So when you run that race, you're eligible for world records, national record spots on national teams, and it's drawing big names over the years. I was interviewed by a journalist leading up to that race, and I told him, I was like, my goal for this race is to keep the pros honest when they come to my city. All right. And that's what I did. I love that shit. Love that shit.
I am fired up right now. I already ran today. Kind of want to run again. But there are people listening to this podcast, right, who are anywhere on the spectrum. They've never run a full mile in their life, all the way to maybe somebody listening has run a 200+ mile race, but anywhere on that spectrum, there are people who have that voice that says, stop, you can't do this. This is too hard. You're going to get hurt. You can't push this much. And it's not just a whisper. What would you tell somebody who wants to turn that into a whisper and not give that voice a space?
Baby steps. Just baby steps. You can always do something 1 second more. You can always take one more step within reason. You can always hang on another minute. If you're trying, I would encourage you to seek community, lean on somebody. There's nothing wrong with asking for help with whatever you're doing, but like, that's what you have to do. And it's so hard. Like, I mean, I'm sitting here talking about running and shit like that, but do you really think I want to go out and run? Like, when we get done today, do you think I want to go run? And I'm fucking motivated. Like, but do you think I want to go run? No. I struggle with this. I think we all struggle with this. I talk to people who are, levels beyond me. They struggle with motivation. So sometimes, that extra second, that extra step, it's hard. Like, it is hard. It doesn't, like, everything is relative, but what's the alternative? Do you want to sit back and be like, I coulda, shoulda, woulda? We've all seen those memes on social media. We've all read those little clickbait articles about, oh, the gazillionaire on his deathbed just wishes he would have taken a walk, or some happy horse shit like that. But it's true, man. So do you want to sit back and be like, I coulda, shoulda, woulda, maybe I should have done that? Get the fuck over yourself, man. Like, that's that.
Mm.
I'm sorry, but like,
no need to apologize for that.
But again, this goes back to good pizza, bad pizza. It's like, you need that voice to tell you can't, so that you can tell yourself you can. It's just, you have to balance it.
Well, to that point, I think a lot of people view doubt, for example, as a bad thing. I would argue that doubt can be a good thing, because true commitment means nothing if there's no doubt. If it was a sure thing, commitment wouldn't exist. Commitment means you are choosing to move forward despite the doubt. And true strength might be choosing to move forward despite the weakness within you. And I think we all do have a little bit of that. Some voices are louder than others. And to your point, I've got another quote. This one's from William James, who said, most people never run far enough on their first win to find out that they've got a second. And I would imagine there are many times in your running experience where you have found that second, third, fourth, 100th win in a race, right?
Yeah, man, totally. And just like in life, in running, there's great lows as well as great highs, and the mark of an experienced person, regardless of whatever field, passion, interest you're into, is understanding that there's ebbs and flows. You can sit there, you can watch the waves, you can watch the clouds, you can watch sunsets, you can watch sunrises, all of which I love, but like, when you watch that, you see the ebbs and the flows, it translates the yin and the yang. There's a harmony to the universe. And running It's no different. These races that I'm really into these days, yeah, Ric Flair's there, but there's a meditative space, and there's ups and downs. So I know that if I'm experiencing a low, chances are it's probably some type of issue with my hydration or my nutrition. Just need to get a little more calories in. It's gonna change. It's not gonna last forever. It's only gonna hurt for now. It's only gonna hurt if I let it hurt. But I also know that like there's gonna be highs where hopefully I'm not thinking about anything. And I've only had that like twice. The one time I had it, Joe, the one time I had that feeling, like it's just like it's like chasing a dragon, dude. Like I'm a straight junkie, and like, man, it was Pine Creek 2020 100 miler. I ran it in 16:57. All right, that's pretty speedy. And like there was a stretch of time when I didn't even realize it, but I was watching myself from above like drone footage, and I don't know how long it lasted. And when I realized it, it was fucking over. And I was like, damn it, and yeah, I've had a glimpse of that since then, but man, like that's a high. That's a high, and then there's the high that comes after the race too. But there's because you did well or you've accomplished your goal. People are, hey man, kudos on Strava, whatever. But there's also a low, you know. You talk to perhaps somebody who just had a child, a couple that just had a child, they're all excited. The baby comes, all this hoopla, and then it's like postpartum. Perhaps somebody planning a big event. It could be a work event, it could be a wedding, it could be a whatever. You have this high and then there's a letdown, so there's ebbs and flows. You need to understand the rhythms of the cosmos. And when you run a 24-hour race, man, you see a sunrise and a sunset, and you run right through to the next sunrise. So you understand, man.
Yeah. Now, you've had that feeling you were describing about twice. Do you know how many miles you've run since you've considered yourself a runner? I mean, rough estimate, it's got to be up there.
I could look at my Strava, and I didn't even join Strava until 2017. And I've been running about 5 years before that. I mean, it's got to be probably about 30,000 miles, maybe. It's not as many as you'd think. It's about 30. And I've been averaging, well over 2,000 the last couple of years. I hit 3,000 back in 2020. My sweet spot when I'm moving and grooving in a block like I am now is like anywhere between 8 and 15 a day. Sometimes two a day, just to hit those miles. So yeah, but I love it.
So 30,000 miles and maybe for what, like 10, 15, you've experienced that feeling, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, man, it's like, it's all relative. When I did my first 10K, I had something, it was like me and my brother and a couple of his boys were all like getting together for this 10K. And I had just started going to the YMCA. And when I walked in there, man, I was a wad of cookie dough, like, 9, 10 months prior. And I trained for that 10K like it was the fucking Olympics, dude. It was like, it was all I had on my plate for the next 4 months. And like, when I ran that race, I actually thought I was ahead of them during the race. And it just felt so good. Dude, I was like 20 minutes behind them, like when they finished. You know what I mean? But like, I had a high then. It wasn't what I had at Pine Creek back in 2020, but like, so everything's relative.
Yeah.
Yeah, seek that. I mean, it's like comparison is the thief of joy. So if I'm going to sit here and be like, oh, I didn't hit my runner's high, that I didn't hit that elusive thing, then man, it's like every run is going to suck. Like everything is going to suck. Again, like good pizza, bad pizza, Joe.
Good pizza, bad pizza. Now, ultra running is an endurance sport. Life can be considered an endurance sport. When you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
I knew you were going to ask this question. So, me being me, I fancy myself a wordsmith of sorts. I enjoy the history of words, the origin of words, the etymology of words. So, I did like, I was looking at the etymology of that word over the years. To make harder, to harden, to make something hard.
Mm.
When I translate, that's where it came from Latin and the old French, and then English took it, and it's sort of, but like it basically for me, it's one foot in front of the other. That's what you have to do. To be able to endure, you have to keep moving. You cannot let that voice, which may be a whisper, it may be a roar, but you cannot let that voice win. You have to suppress it. You have to endure. You have to move forward. And it doesn't have to be in ultra running. It could be in your personal life. It could be in your professional life. Anything. If you're going to endure, you have to keep forward. You can't give up. Surround yourself with the right people. Work hard when no one's looking. Keep your head down. Don't listen to the hype. Work hard. It's the simple things. It's the basics. It's the basics. Positive attitude. It's all cliche, man, but it's cliche for a reason. And the simplest things are the hardest things.
Amen. Yeah.
It's truth. Thank you.
I didn't even ask the last question yet, and I already know that I'm going to be listening back to this entire episode on multiple long runs down the road, just because of the things you've said have really sparked something in me, and I know that they've sparked something in others listening. And this last question is a special one because no matter who's listening to this, where they are, what they're going through in life, we're all human. We're all struggling with something. And if somebody's going through a tough season, they're in a dark place, they're not sure where to go or what to do, maybe they don't feel comfortable with who they are. And I would imagine that applies to a lot of people. And you get a chance to just speak to them, speak some encouragement, speak some guidance, some wisdom. What would you say to them?
Everybody there's a lid to every pot. Everybody has something that they can be proud of, and it doesn't have to be on a grand scale. Everybody has something that they can, when they look inside themselves, they're able to shine. All right. And again, it doesn't have to be this 600-watt Kogala chest strap light system, that lights up the whole trail at nighttime. It can be a little key fob that you get from the gas station when you change your oil. You have to allow that to take root. You have to believe in yourself. When others don't believe in you, that's when you believe in yourself. Like, dude, tell me I can't do something. Ugh. Like, understand what makes you you. And it doesn't, like, I understand this about myself now. I'm wired to go down rabbit holes. So I found my weaknesses and I slowly changed them into my strengths, and that came from honoring the light that is within me. And now that I've honored that, hopefully I'm a little key fob for others along the way, and that's how it starts, by just, understanding your own light. And with light, man, comes darkness. There's good pizza and there's bad pizza, dude.
Good pizza, bad pizza. Where is the best pizza you've ever had? I'm going to put you on the spot because you're making me hungry.
Not on the spot whatsoever, man. I told you I was a wild man back in the day. When I flunked out of Kutztown, I worked the following summer with Lollapalooza. I spent working for the 95 tour. I made a shit ton of money, met a lady friend. She and I traveled Europe together. When the money ran dry, my whole family lives in Italy. So I went down south to Italy, spent a year working as a waiter in a pizzeria. There's a town called Ascoli Piceno. The pizzeria is called Pizzeria Bella Napoli, which is strange because Naples is like nowhere near Ascoli. They've been around for, I guess, well, Christ, at this time, it's got to be at least 60 years now. And pizza shop, like pizzerias in Italy, they don't stay open for more than a day if they don't make good pizza. To have a spot like this, literally 200 yards from one of Italy's top 10 piazzas, Piazza del Popolo in Ascoli, Pizzeria Bella Napoli. There'd be like a couple misdemeanors I would commit to get a pizza, because, man, like, one of the perks of that job, and I wasn't paid a lot of money, but it definitely allowed me to, survive over there, to have a little bit of money for coffee, to run with, just to just hang with friends and have like a minimal lifestyle. And I'm grateful to my family to allow me to stay there with them. But like, they would give me a pizza on the way home every night, like a little personal pizza. So mine was always quattro formaggio with picante, with salami picante. So it's basically just like a 4 cheese pizza with gorgonzola and pepperoni. And oddly enough, man, when I finished Tahoe, they have a chef who's there at the finish line, and like it's wild. And he says, and he's like, he has this whole pizza thing, right? Brick oven pizza, and like it was awesome. And he's like, "What do you want on your pizza?" And I said, "A 4 cheese pizza with gorgonzola and pepperoni, well done, light sauce." So yeah, man, Pizzeria Bella Napoli, not on the spot at all. That's an easy question.
Let me ask you this: for those of us local to the Philadelphia area, Northeast, let's say, is there is there a spot in the continental U.S. That you would say has good pizza?
No matter what I say, it's going to pale in comparison. No, I would just urge you to support your local businesses. If I mean, everyone's got a neighborhood, whether it's Joe's, it's Tony's, it's this, it's that. Everyone's got a local spot, man. Support your local businesses, shop small business, take care of the people that like take care of your community. And if you have a chance, head over to Europe, check out Pizzeria Bella Napoli.
There we go. There we go. Well, Gags, this has been awesome. If anybody listening wants to reach out, wants to follow along with what you have going on and just see what's next, where's the best place for people to do that?
Best place to do that is my Instagram, BDG123. And from there, you'll find links to all the projects that I'm involved in.
Cool. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I would also say that you are more than a key fob light for people out there, whether you realize it or not. And I hope you keep doing what you're doing. And I can't wait to grow with you and foster our friendship. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. I'm very humbled and grateful for the opportunity to come on here and just kind of ramble for an hour about the things that I love talking about. But thank you. And I think what you're doing, it's just, we need more conversations like this, like good energy. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you, Mike, for arranging this conversation also.
Yeah. Thank you, Gags. Appreciate it.
Peace and love, Joe. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.